We have Philip Stanger here, CEO of Wifarer. So here's Philip. We have Nigel Malkin, CEO of RewardLoop in the middle, and Mischa Steiner-Jovic. Did I say it right?
Close enough.
From Awesense Wireless. And they're going to be on our panel here. And what I thought we would do to start out is just have them give a brief introduction about their company before we start getting into the meat, just so we know who they are and what they're about. So we'll start with you.
Hello, my name is Philip Stanger, as you heard. Wifarer has developed an indoor positioning system. So what it does is it basically does what GPS does outdoors, but indoors. As most of you know, GPS doesn't work indoors. Any sort of positioning that you try to do for an individual indoors involves generally another hardware layer, so RFID, Bluetooth, something along those lines. Another expense, another complication. What we do is we take the aggregation of access points, Wi-Fi access points in the venue that already exists, and from there we create, basically do pattern recognition. We create an RF fingerprint, so we take the aggregation of these access points and the signal strengths, and that creates this fairly unique pattern. We record those various patterns in different places, and record that up into a cloud-based system, a database, and the phone does the whole thing in reverse. Says, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, and we interpolate the location to about 1.3 meters granularity indoors. So once, basically rolls up the gutter there. So once we know where somebody is, we can serve them a whole bunch of different services. So navigation, wayfinding being one of them. You know, in a large complex venue like an airport, a convention center, we know you're there, I'm trying to get to point A, the washroom, another meeting room, etc., and we draw a line and show them exactly point A to point B. We can serve them location-based services, so content very relevant to the immediate location they're in. So in a shopping center, it could be coupons and things as you're walking past the shop. So not just for the whole mall, but that particular shop. Once you're inside the shop, possibly getting information on this particular stand of clothes someplace here, stand of CDs someplace else, this sort of stuff. In a museum, you can have content regarding the artifact or the display that you're looking at. And then finally, we can also aggregate all this information into a form of analytics. We can see how people actually use spaces, where the dwell times are, where they're hanging around, where they're not, if they're getting lost anyplace. Who are these people? Where are they going? What are they doing in the spaces? And that's what the analytics answers, and that's basically what Wifarer does.
Great. Nigel?
Very good. So RewardLoop is a secure mobile loyalty platform. So we basically enable you to have your loyalty relationship with your favorite merchants without having to carry around the cards anymore. So the average consumer has about 3.2 active accounts, and then I think most of us have a drawer or a wallet or a purse full of loyalty cards that we never use, or we never have them with us when we need them. So what we do is we print transaction identifying QR codes on bills and receipts. So when you go to your favorite merchant, if they're enrolled in our program, you get the receipt, you simply scan the receipt, and you collect your loyalty points or rewards from that merchant simply by scanning the receipt, and you can throw it away. It's really simple for the customer. It's actually really simple for the merchant. The way we do it is a bit more complex. Our original solution was a deep software level integration, and we'd actually have to integrate right into a merchant's point of sale system. Pretty expensive, pretty time consuming. The starting price was $100,000, and it would go up from there. So a very limited set of merchants that we could market this to. Then one large chain fast food merchant out of the US wanted to run a pilot with us. I can't say who, but this particular merchant, their point of sale system had been discontinued, so we couldn't do our usual software level integration. And I actually thought we'd have to blow them off, but my business partner, who's sort of the genius of the two of us, within about 2 hours came up with a workaround that's become our flagship product. It's called RewardLoop Connect, and what it does is imagine a little device that sits between a merchant's existing point of sale system and their receipt printer. What we do is we have the merchant unplug the cable from the back of the receipt printer, plug it into our device, run another cable back to the receipt printer, and our device listens in on the print data stream, pulls out all the information we need to create a loyalty transaction, so things like the location, the date and time, the server, the subtotal. In real time, we convert all of that into a unique transaction identifying QR code, and we inject that back into the print data stream. So what happens is the receipt printer prints exactly the receipt that the point of sale told it to print, but then we add this little the bill footer to the bottom of it that includes a call to action, the transaction identifying QR code. Really simple, and now we brought the sort of cost of entry down from a starting price of about $100,000 down to under $100. So now we have this really simple to deploy, it takes about 15 minutes, cross POS scalable solution that works for just about any merchant, whether they're a restaurant or a coffee shop or a retailer or a service business. That's what we do.
Good.
So my name is Mischa Steiner-Jovic. I'm CEO and founder of Awesense Wireless. And we've built a solution to help utility companies quickly and easily identify electrical losses within their distribution portion of the grid, of the electrical grid. That's the portion between the substation or the station that pumps out the power and your building. So the overhead lines, the underground wires, and whatnot within the grid that are servicing all of us, all the electricity tonight. We analyze that, and we do that with basically two products that we have. We have a device called a mobile smart sensor. And what this does is it clips onto the electrical line, and once it's clipped on, it starts analyzing and pulling data off of that line, trying to figure out what the load profile is. And it's a wireless device, so we aggregate that data back to our software suite, which we call SenseNet. And algorithms in the back end are crunching that data and helping utilities, utility managers, engineers figure out what the profiles are of that area, the characteristics, and where their losses might be. And we also help them prioritize and determine what the most relevant events are and where to focus their energy.
Great. Three very interesting, unique applications, I think. So before we delve in a little bit more in the companies, I thought it'd be interesting to hear why they were successful in this new ventures competition. At least I'm kind of interested. So I was wondering if each of you could comment on what you think were the reasons you were able to get to the final round, or the top 10 out of all these other companies, in your view.
Actually, I see some of the judges here, so it's probably a better question to ask them. Nonetheless, yeah, exactly. So I think, if I may put words in your mouth, is a couple of different elements. One was just the scope of the business. It's certainly the size of the industry is vast. The idea of indoor positioning has been the holy grail of positioning for pretty much 20 years. There was a DARPA project in the 1990s, the military project that tried to do it, didn't work. Anyway, time is right for it, and it's extending what Google does outdoors, indoors, so there's a multi-billion-dollar market there. I think that the fact that we had different revenue streams that we could derive from it, from the location-based services, from the analytics, from the loyalty type of affairs that we do, many different streams of revenue that one can generate, and it's really just a matter of picking which one is the most profitable initially and going after that. Also the fact that we had traction. We have partners in the States that we're working with that are sizable partners that have hundreds of malls in some situations or thousands of other locations. And we're in various different airports and universities in different locations. So there is a proven model there that's beginning to work. And I think that's possibly a lot of what went into it.
Okay. I think we did a good job conveying the pain point, and we have a pain point that most people understand, which is people don't like to carry around all these loyalty cards, and yet we all like rewards. So we were very focused on conveying that, also conveying that we've done a very good job protecting our IP. It'd be very difficult for any company to come to market and copy exactly what we do. And then probably most importantly is sharing the traction that we had in the context of some really recognizable brands. It's, you can have a great idea, but if you've actually gone out and talked to potential clients, in our case, we had some really big chains who had signed up for pilots with us. We also had some pretty, I would say, A-list people on our advisory board, including one of the vice presidents of Air Miles. We have the COO of Crate and Barrel. So I would say it's really important not to ever hesitate to name drop, not in I guess in a smarmy way, but be proud of what you've done and the relationships that you've forged with your clients, with your advisory board. This is really important because it shows that sort of traction, I think shows that you're going somewhere.
Interesting.
Well, I think for us, time to put effort into the competition was a major part of it. Actually, Awesense has entered the New Ventures competition 3 times. So the first time we entered, we just wanted to learn and attend the seminars. Second time we entered, we were just up to our eyeballs in product development, and we had no time to really put any effort into the application or into the rounds. So we didn't make it very far. And the third time we entered to win, which we didn't. We won a pretty big prize, so that's okay. And I just think, same as what Nigel and Philip said, just be proud of the fact that you've been tenacious and kept at it, and share that story with the judges and showcase what you've done to them, and show them that you've worked really hard to get to where you are.
Great. Well, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but did each of you receive coaching, or did you spend a lot of time on the presentations, do you think, in order to win?
There's a substantial amount of work that you have to do. There's no question about it. The presentations take a lot of time. We had certain coaching with some great advisors that we're still very much in touch with. And certainly the first phase and just the documentation, I think it was probably a good 80 hours went into that alone, which I frankly didn't do, somebody else did and oversaw. No confession. But no, there is a lot of work that goes into it, there's no question.
Same for you, Nigel?
My confession is sort of the other end of the spectrum was we just don't have a ton of bandwidth, so we did the very best we could do with the amount of time we had, and constantly choosing between sort of where I would say that each stage of the application, we probably sat down and made ourselves do it until well past 1 in the morning, a day or 2 before the actual deadline. And it's strictly just sort of a managing bandwidth thing. The mentors we had were fantastic, although we only had one face-to-face meeting with them. I had been through the competition actually once before for a different company. I think I got it into the second round. I got a ton out of it that first time that I went through, and I think many of the speaker series, I noticed that a lot of them were the same, so I realized I had been through it, but we had some new some new hires that were, I guess, fresh out of the corporate world and had never been through this, so I sent them and they got so much out of it. So I would say that the actually going to all the seminars is incredibly valuable. Sometimes you'll hear stuff that you just won't agree with, but it's really important to hear some perspectives that, I don't know, may or may not fit with your views of things, but it'll give you good practice for when you're up against potential investors or partners who see the world a little bit differently than you.
Right. So how many people here are interested in participating in this competition? Just raise your hand. Is there anyone that, anyone else? You're nodding. Those hands aren't going up very far, but.
So, I have a question for Phil and I think 2 for Nigel. So, Phil, do you guys have a patent or any type of IP protection around what you're doing, and which makes it unique? And do potential customers or venues need to install or reinstall the already available Wi-Fi spots or not?
Yes and no. Yes, we do have a lot of patent protection. We have a year, as you know, you get, in the States particularly, you get a provisional patent, but that allows you to, a great degree, to do years worth of innovation and throw that all into the same patent application. When that goes to be defended, due to their requirements, it generally branches off. So we're expecting to get 7 patents out of that initial one. And no, you don't have to have any specialized hardware. There's nothing that's installed. It's basically a software application that we've written on a laptop that you walk through a space. it creates the RF fingerprints as you're walking through. It's about 30 seconds. You stand in a spot and then move on to another spot. And it sniffs out the wireless, creates the pattern, and crunches various things with it and puts it up into the database.
So somebody needs to hold up a laptop or a tablet or whatever and walk through the airport?
Correct. That's initialize it. To initialize the space, that's what you need to do. Exactly.
And that guy needs to be trained or?
Minimally trained. We have a few partners that we work with, and generally about half an hour's worth of showing you, what you're supposed to do, and don't do this, and do that, and that's more or less it. Yeah. And what we're getting to the point is that we're trying to get the venues themselves to do this. So it's just a piece of software that they download, and we give them an online tutorial of this is what you need to do, and then they can do it themselves. And because it's all cloud-based, we control that end process. We create an account for them. They can only do their venue, and the loop is completely controlled by us. But at least it gives them the control of how they're doing it. If they ever need to fix something, they move a wall, they move this, they move that, and they do that. So yeah.
And for Nigel, so do you guys have designed your own hardware? And if so, are you giving it away for free, or you're selling it to your potential customers?
We have an outsourced hardware development team. It's a team of 5 people. It's actually based here locally. And they do a fantastic job. We're not really in the hardware business, so this is sort of, to us, it's an enabler. We're a cloud-hosted service. But we do need this little piece of hardware. Somebody, at one of our clients, they said we're sort of Magic Jack for the point-of-sale industry. Kind of true. We like the analogy, although we don't use it in any of our literature. But this outsourced development team, they've helped us develop the prototypes. They'll also be managing the entire manufacturing process for us. As for the cost, our cost is today under $100 a unit, and at volume will be under $50 a unit. Where we make our money is once it's installed, we basically charge per transaction. And for that reason, we will be giving them away for free.
But initially, right now, you're charging the customers for the hardware, or
that's right. We charge a $100 security deposit, and then we rent the device for $19.95 a month. And over time, we're going to
also charge on the transactions, right?
That's right. But the only reason we're charging is just to cover our manufacturing costs. Once we have basically cash flow permitting, we'll be giving them away for free.
But you said the manufacturing is being done in China.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you want to comment on your pricing?
Pricing is such a difficult thing, particularly when fairly new paradigm, I sort of go backwards and forwards. So no, I don't want to comment.
I'm only asking because I think people are interested in how you price these types of products, right?
No, it's interesting. Well, let me say, for the retail spaces, and that's where we're focusing, we're doing a revenue share with them, because what we're ultimately doing is charging the retailer rather than the venue themselves. So we're really taking the idea of the click-through in the web, so the Google AdWords click-through, and translating that into the real world. So we're charging for a walkthrough, if you would. So once we deliver a shopper into a shop, through various different means, that's when the retailer pays. They pay depending on what they have said they're going to pay based upon a bidding model. So it's a sort of a mashup of a couple of different business models that exist currently. And that seems to be getting some acceptance. So that's
So in terms of the application, so I would use this, let's say on my iPhone, to navigate a mall, as an example.
So less navigation, more discovery. Navigation is as compelling as it is when you're lost. You're not often lost. So what we try to do is to make the application slightly more compelling by heightening your sense of discovery of the venue through the content, or basically enabling your connection with the venue at a different level. So in a shopping center particularly, having this idea that shoppers often the first thing they want is discounts or loyalty, or they want something back from their engagement. So what we try to do is give them discounts where it really matters at the point of sale. So where when they're walking by a shop, or when they're in a shop, or something along those lines, at that point they get a message. So we have these dynamic content pop-ups that occur as a user is actually walking through a space. Either your phone will vibrate to alert you that there's some content of some sort around, which might be a coupon, might be whatever the venue wants to give you as an enticement. They control that aspect. and we just control the delivery of that content at the right time, at the right place. And once they react to it and they go inside of a shop, there's a causal effect there, and we charge the retailer for that walkthrough. And so that's the pricing model in that situation.
Mischa, you care to?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, pricing for us was fairly difficult, actually, because it's quite a nascent market, and pretty much no company is doing what we are doing. So we looked at the fixed infrastructure solutions. So, you know, out there's other companies building sensors for the distribution grid that are placed on the distribution grid, and they live there forever. You know, this 30-year lifespan that utilities expect out of fixed infrastructure. So we looked at that and we said, okay, well, our system's mobile. You can move it around anywhere at your will. So therefore, it's more expensive. And then for the software portion, you know, we sort of looked at, okay, how big is the problem? What can we ultimately achieve? You know, how much can they really save? So on average, you know, a utility has $3 million of loss per 50 to 100,000 homes. So like a utility like the size of BC Hydro has a $100 to $150 million problem. You know, if our software is $5 million, what's the big deal, right? So, you know, I'm not saying that's how much our software is, but you know.
So it sounds like pricing is something that's evolving, and
you got to price it obviously right, that, you know, the customer sees value, right? You always want to make sure that the customer is seeing value, and that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be cheap.
so in all your cases, so let's just comment on this value proposition. So, I mean, it seems like the utility companies would see value, but is it obvious to them, or are you having to convince them that there is some value to this?
No, actually, the utility companies that we talk to, it's fairly obvious.
Yeah.
They know they have a problem. Some, actually, that's not entirely true. Some utility companies, you know, try and shrug it off and say that they don't have a problem, you know, because they're so large and their rate base is so high that they don't really care. But there's definitely a significant amount of utilities out there that are experiencing a very high pain point. I mean, here in BC, we have about 10% loss. That's why we focus on the distribution grid, because it's so inefficient.
So
But
where are the biggest losses around the world? Are there some
South
areas?
America, India, Turkey, some other parts of Europe, I mean, we're talking 30 to 40% loss.
Right. So you have, with this product, you have global reach then.
Absolutely.
And how about you, Nigel? In terms of value, do you have any problems convincing retailers that
We
they
have
need this?
no problem, but we charge, the actual metaphor we use is a virtual stamp card, which everyone's familiar with, say, from coffee shops, where you go in and every time you buy a cup of coffee, you get a stamp. This is the metaphor we use on the phone. And we crunched all sorts of different pricing models. And in fact, some of our distribution channels were telling us that they could sell it to merchants for as high as 5% of every loyalty transaction that goes through. For us, and I actually believe that there's some merchants who would do it, even though I think that that's overpricing it. But we looked at how companies like ours are valued on exit. Because someday we would like to sell this company. And the things that are taken into account are things like the number of merchants on your network, the number of end users on your network, and how fast that network is growing. So for us, we realized, well, if a company is value based on these types of metrics, probably the smartest thing we can do is really lower the barriers to entry for merchants to get into the game, which is why we want to be giving the device away for free. That's why we charge 10 cents a stamp. So effectively, a merchant pays $1 per completed stamp card. And it doesn't matter how they set their reward rate. If they set the reward rate so a customer spent $20 to earn a reward or $150, we're just getting $1 per completed stamp card, and we can still make a lot of money at that price. So that's where we're at today, and we figured out some other ways to monetize. We have a ton of data that goes through our system, so there's lots of other opportunities to monetize in ways that are quite appealing to merchants and pad our bottom line.
And Philip, are you, like, when you're out talking to companies, do you have to convince them of the value? Does it?
Well, not really with that model, because it's a provable ROI. They're only paying for the customers that they want, and they're getting. The typical acquisition cost for a customer, for a retailer, is any place between $10 and $15. So if they're this is through traditional advertising, television,
Right.
magazine,
Okay.
what have you. So if they're paying, $1, $2, even 50 cents or 75 cents, some of
So
the
they're
models,
saving money.
they're saving huge amounts of money, and for us, it's as you said, it's a substantial amounts of revenue they can generate even from 1/10 the normal acquisition cost that they traditionally pay.
Now, it sounds like all of your product offerings are quite unique, but can you comment on if there are other companies out there that are doing similar things? Or like, do you find that there are other, startup companies that are trying to do the same thing that you're doing?
6 months ago, I would have said no. Now, there's actually quite a bit of competition starting up. With the idea of indoor positioning, certainly there's a few companies that are doing it. We still have a lead, because all they're doing is really just that idea of positioning, while we have for quite a while now looked at, well, fine, we have this position, what can we do with it? What are the benefits? Where can we take it next? And we've started to move out those boundaries. So we have a whole bunch of elements that work with that content management, or rather the indoor positioning system. So we're still ahead of people, but no, there's certainly a lot of people eyeing.
So you feel like you have to keep making improvements to differentiate yourself?
We do, absolutely. I mean, one of the most important things is when you're talking to customers, then you start to really get an idea of what they're really looking for at the end of the day. And we found some very surprising things when talking to some of these large retail chains and the mall organizations, things that we actually would never have thought about had we not had that conversation. One of the ideas being the domination of their own digital domain, the spectrum domination they call it in some cases. So they know what's coming down the pipeline. They don't want these ad hoc systems where they've spent sometimes billions of dollars on the infrastructure and creating value for all these retailers in there. They don't want somebody coming outside and doing ad hoc surveys and ad hoc mapping and basically monetizing their venue and taking that money out. So that was a big concern, and we realized, well, actually we can resolve that with another piece of software that we created to work in conjunction with it. So talking to the customer, we've actually realized a lot of things that has pushed our product further and further and further, and has allowed us to keep that breadth and distance.
Right. Now, these competitors you talk about, are they startups as well, or
Yes.
are they big companies?
No, they're startups as well. Although there's some big companies that are also eyeing the space. They're not in the space yet, and we're hoping to be able to close up some of these places before they get too far into it.
And Nigel, what kind of competitors do you have, if any?
We have a lot of what we call quasi-competitors, and they're a real thorn in our side because to the uninitiated, they look very similar. There's many companies jumping into the mobile loyalty space doing check-in based loyalty, and that's either check-ins through location-based services or check-ins through scanning a QR code to say I'm here. But at the end of the day, that doesn't prove that a customer bought anything. And you're finding a lot of small independent merchants, maybe they're not sophisticated enough to understand the sort of the fraud potential issues and some of the other issues there, that are jumping on board. But none of the big chains are even experimenting with this because, the saving grace of these card-based programs that none of us like is you swipe it and they know exactly what you bought and they're rewarding you for your actual purchase behavior. The holy grail in our space is to enable that sort of transactional security, but in a cardless way through your mobile phone. And to date, we're the only company that we know of that's doing that. We've seen one other company doing something similar with optical character recognition where you take a picture of the receipt. That's something that we looked at long ago when we were trying to sort of pick our path, and we ruled it out. Basically a lot of usability issues with that. So we're in good shape right now. We've also had some really big companies in our space kicking tires with us as a company, meaning I don't want to name names since I'm on camera here, but some really big companies kicking tires, and you can tell that this is on the brain of the sort of the innovation departments at some of the biggest companies in software and finance and retail. Everything is going mobile. Loyalty is a huge part of mobile payments, so there's definitely a lot of thinking going on in our space, and I would say from what we've seen, and these are companies kicking our tires, they've been kicking the competition's tires too, and we feel pretty happy with the path we've chosen. So.
Sounds good so far. So, Mischa, how about, do you have any competition?
Yeah, well, I mean, same sort of thing. There's different solutions that is competition out there. So we're really the only company that's focused on creating a mobile non-fixed infrastructure solution. And the reason we did that was as a startup, it's better for us because it's not a long sales cycle that you typically experience with our type of customer. So really, the competitors out there have fixed sensor solutions, and the other thing we did is we took it one step farther, where we created an entire end-to-end system. So not just the sensors themselves. At the beginning we were just making a sensor, a piece of hardware, but then we started to really think about what can we do with the data and how can we analyze the data better and how can we make it easier for them, and that really created an entire end-to-end system. And we're really the only company that has that encompassing system. And the good thing is, utility companies are, pragmatist buyers, right? So they buy solutions, they don't buy products. So now, we have a solution for them to use. The other really nice thing that differentiates us from the other competitors that are only using it, for fixed infrastructure solutions is our system can be used as a platform for utility service providers to go and use our system as the service to sell to utilities. So instead of us selling directly to utilities, we can sell to utility service providers, and they use our system as the enabler for their service business.
So do any of you have customers today?
Yeah, absolutely. We have, we're in one shopping center that's about to go live in Boston.
Great.
We've got a couple of universities and convention centers.
Yeah, for us, we have a few pilot sites going. One actually right around the corner. It's Preston's Restaurant in the Coast Hotel on straddles Pender and Hastings. We've got another pilot site in New Mexico. But right now, we're waiting to actually finish our first manufacturing run. We do have several companies basically on a waiting list for our product to run. Some of them are big chains wanting to run metro market pilots. Others are just individuals, and then we've got a whole bunch of...
So you're really just on the verge of...
Yeah, as soon as they're sitting in our warehouse ready to ship, and I can give a better answer, but right now it's basically just pilot sites with our early prototypes.
And how about you, Mischa?
Yes.
Care to elaborate?
No. I can't. I'm actually, all the companies that we're working with, we're under confidentiality agreements. So
Okay, so you
can't list them.
You have several customers, huh?
Sure.
All right.
More than one. Yes.
All right. With that, does anybody? I'll entertain some questions from anyone who has any.
Yeah,
Peter?
Yes, Howard. Just congratulations to all the panelists on your achievement. I was just curious, aside from the cash awards that obviously all of you could use in winning the competition, can you comment on any other benefits that have accrued to you from being successful in the new ventures, whether it be in terms of attracting new funding from VCs or strengthening your PR profile, attracting new prospects, clients, markets, etc. If you could comment on that.
Sure. Anyone?
Also, yes.
Certainly, I think from the PR profile, that was quite helpful. We've certainly gotten a lot of very positive feedback from various different people who said, congratulations, and do you want to look at our project and all these sort of things. But I think actually one of the most important ones is actually we were very lucky to have some very good advisors, and those advisors have carried on the association with us, and they are some very notable local entrepreneurs, but certainly provided some very, very good advice and feedback and mentorship through the process, and hopefully carry on as possibly board advisors and what have you later on too. But I think that, if I was to say anything, that would be the first and foremost thing. Very valuable advice, yeah.
Yeah, I would just add to that. So all of the obvious ones that you pointed out, like the PR is fantastic. The cash is super helpful. For us, I would say the side benefit was you get a bit of momentum when you get an award like this. We actually won in the TIA Awards, we won Most Promising Startup as well. So we apply for every award show that would be in any way relevant to what we do. Not that we think we're going to win them all, but we give our best shot to all of them and we give as much bandwidth as we can, because it starts to create a bit of a halo effect. And I would say that for us, in particular, no offense if there's anyone in the room from any of the government organizations, but it's been our experience that government organizations that fund companies or that contribute to companies, they really like to have some external validation before they put money or sort of, it's basically they're putting their reputation on the line. And if they have nothing but the information you give them, then they have to get up in front of their peers and sort of defend you with nothing other than basically their gut feeling. And the more external validation you have, I would say the easier it starts to become to get other sources of funding. And I won't name any of the government programs by name other than to say that it's sort of all the obvious candidates. Our relationships with them have been strengthened so much more just from winning or even getting into the tops of these competitions. And some of them have even said point blank, this is great, I have to get up and compete with my peers for sort of funding for this and that, and this is really helpful because, there'll be people in the room who don't have that external validation, so it's been really good for us.
Yeah, it's, I guess, traditionally we really suck at PR, so that, just sending that out was really terrific for us, First of all, people were surprised that we sent out a newsletter talking about it. So that was the first thing. And, just the validation. So we won the BC Hydro Sustainability Award. And we can't talk about who our customers are, but that validation point opened up a whole bunch of other doors. Some other customers, some other potential partners. People saw that and said, wow, okay, these guys are serious. There's something real here. It's not just, another green tech, clean tech company talking about, some idea, right? Because there's a ton of those in the valley, right? I guess there's a ton everywhere. So that validation was huge for us. And, just, again, I think, what Nigel said, a huge morale boost for the team. It's just like, wow, we got a great award, right? And it was just a really great feeling for the whole team because, I'm really fortunate to work with a great group of people that, push really hard all the time, and just to have that validation point, it just lifts your spirits, right? It's great.
Next.
Sorry, two quick questions. One for Philip. You mentioned venues such as malls and airports. How about underground venues, underground malls? Is that something that your product can?
Absolutely, really. Well, any place that there's Wi-Fi. So hospitals, particularly in the States, where they're for-profit centers. Of course, airports, shopping centers, museums, universities, convention centers. And the list can really be. Go on and on and on, but really wherever there's Wi-Fi.
Okay. And sorry, Mischa, I'm just curious, your background, is it engineering or software? Or?
My background is electrical engineering.
Okay. So you can use that to come up.
I don't wear my rings. It's not comfortable.
Okay.
I have it in my pocket if you want to see it.
That's fine.
Hi guys, my name is Vince from co-founder company called AirG. We won the first one, actually, the first research piece 10 years ago. I feel old. What did you guys have, or what was it you guys did, you think, that won the contest? Or won was it the pitch, was it the product, was it the business plan? Like, just looking back, what is it that you just share with us? Like, what was the winning strategy for you guys?
You want to start first?
Sure. Well, I alluded to this before, but I think really being really proud of sharing all the traction we've had with specific partners. So for us, it was sharing in the competition. Everything was sort of it was under some sort of NDA, so we were actually able to disclose who some of our early clients were. Some really big chains. We're also able to obviously share who's on our advisory board. I think we had done so many investor presentations by the time we went to do this pitch that myself and my co-founder, it's just like a well-oiled machine. And there was a few tweaks actually. There was one New Ventures VC practice session where they actually raked us over the coals, and I think the final comment of the day was, well, it's amazing you guys have gotten this far, and I think we can all agree if you give the same presentation at New Ventures VC, there's no way you'd win. And we were missing a really key slide, but it's actually one that's missing from our investor presentation, and that is it's basically sort of the financials and the projections, and it's just from our perspective, it's sort of a little bit ridiculous to try and make predictions about things like that when you're sort of you're paving new ground in a space that doesn't even exist yet. All you can do is say, if we're going to be the best in this space, and you believe that loyalty, like everything else, is going mobile, and we can be the biggest and the best, then we can make a lot of money. And who's going to be so bold as to sort of put an actual dollar figure on that? Because it can start to look pretty ridiculous when you look at the fact that loyalty really touches, in our case, loyalty touches any high purchase volume frequency business on the planet. So it's very easy to get into these ridiculous numbers. So we didn't have that, but we went back and we crunched the numbers, and we kept having to dial them down and dial them down and dial them down just to get into something that was even, so somebody wouldn't say you guys are just full of crap to even think this. And we finally got to a number that I guess was plausible. I think we could exceed it. It's a slide that we used only for the New Ventures VC competition, never before, never since. But it seemed to, I guess, hit the mark with the audience, and I guess it was good feedback.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I think yeah. So I think that, I was mentioning this a little earlier too. That certainly, the fact that we had some traction, that we were in certain spaces, that we're playing in a fairly sizable market. So there's a lot of pie there, and whatever section of that pie that we get is going to be a fairly sizable one. And the fact that we have a fairly, it's getting less unique as we talk, but a solution that actually does work and is in demand. So.
I think for us, the best thing we have done, like Nigel, I've been through quite a few investor pitches. Basically, whenever there's an opportunity to present or pitch, I'll take it. And everybody, like you probably know, everybody has an opinion about your business and what you should include in your pitch deck and what you should not. And your job as CEO is to distill that information into something meaningful, and so that you present accordingly. Basically, one of the best things that we did was just listen to the feedback. We actually had to go through round 2.5. We didn't make it right into round 3, so we had to present in round 2.5 and present to the panel there. And yeah, they were tough. And we actually have some great advisors too, and they're also very tough on me most of the time. You need this, you need this, you need this projection, you need this. And so, I take that information and apply it to our presentation. Actually, the night before the main presentation, I was working on a partnership deal. So I got a few hours of sleep. I woke up the next morning. I put the presentation together at, I think, around 9 o'clock in the morning. And I practiced it twice, and we walked over and I pitched. So that was it for us. Maybe I should have practiced a little bit better, because he got a little bit higher than us. So.
So just to share with you guys quickly as well, just a couple hours before our presentation.
Yeah.
On 9/11.
Oh.
What happened on the spot. So basically, we were surprised if you actually remembered our presentation.
Apparently there was an earthquake during My presentation. I didn't feel it.
The ground rules
It was that good.
Because you're so good, they tell.
I just want to say, Nigel, I was on the panel that raked you over the coals. So whatever you did, I commend you because you obviously did something, you tweaked it the right way.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
because I remember the day.
Yeah.
That was before 5.
Yeah.
I'll take one or two more questions. Did you have one?
Yeah.
Oh.
I wondered how long it's been since you guys first started, and how many people, and how much time, and how much money did it cost to get to where you guys are now?
Do you hold that?
Yeah.
Do you hold that information? So how long have you been in business?
Well, we incorporated in January 2010, so it's about coming up to 2 years now, so a year and just over a half. What was that other?
How many people?
How many people? We're up to, I think it's 12 or 13 now.
And how much have you spent to date?
Yeah, right. We had an initial investment of a certain amount, and then the government certainly chipped in for other amounts on top of that, without wanting to get into actual dollar figures. But yeah, less than $1 million. It's quite a lot less than $1 million.
Thank you.
For us, so we had the idea in the spring of last year. We incorporated, well, myself and my co-founder were actually working for another company here in town. We had this idea, it had nothing to do with that company, but we started protecting the IP. We incorporated the company in, it was end of April of last year. We're still working for this other company, but we got into the entrepreneurship at Wayfront program, which gave us a year of free office space. And once we had won that, actually Mischa was in that as well. It was just sort of like there's no excuse. We're basically putting a dream and sticking it on the shelf and not going after it. So we both quit our day jobs and went and took advantage of this office space, which is actually just a desk at Wayfront. But it's a place to go and meet, and you've got everything you need there. So we were there every day from about October onwards. We self-funded from October through the closing of our first financing round, which was in May of this year. It's basically, it's the whole ramen and not paying rent and borrowing from everyone you know and getting way behind on your bills, but we did it and we finally got financed, and that was really to accelerate development of the device I was talking about. So we staffed up, so we're now at 5 people, including myself and my co-founder, and then we have this outsourced hardware development team. It's another 5 people who, when they're working, it's 5 people working for us full time. They're on hold right now until we complete our next round. So the key point in there is you definitely have to have it in you to go without pay for a while, and I've had to go longer than that in the past, and it's really tough sometimes, but the payoff is worth it.
So number of people, we're at about 6 people now. Financing, same sort of thing. It's the startup story, right? We incorporated in March of 2009, with a really bad idea that was just stupid. But it actually allowed us to, myself and another individual, develop the core piece of technology that's used in our wireless mesh system today during that time. And we leveraged everything that we could. Obviously, I self-funded the company myself, and I leveraged any government funding program. They've actually been really good to us that I could. So, IRAP, SHRED, any other grant opportunity that I could to fund the company and make it grow and keep it going and develop. And basically what happened was in January of 2010, we approached a utility company and we said, this is what we want to solve. I know you have a really big problem. You give us access to your manpower and your grid, and we'll give you the first system. And they said yes, and we just hit the ground running. We just started developing, and basically from January to June, there was 3 of us that basically worked non-stop building the first system, the first sensors basically. Then another utility came around, wanted to try it on very high voltages. It failed. Then basically from September to December of 2010, we redesigned it in half the time it took us to do the first version. And that's, we're here today with customers, and that's where we are.
Good. Phil has to catch a plane tonight, so
Yes.
thanks a lot, Phil.
Thank you.
So we'll take one more question for the two remaining people.
It's such a cliche question, but now that you guys started promising startups and you're located in BC, do you think it's better to be in BC compared to the Valley? Better, I'm not saying easier. It's better to stay here, and yes or no, why?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead.
I think we're in very different spaces, and for the space we're in, there's no doubt that it would be better for us to be located down there, but we're not going to. It's I mean, there's certainly great companies have been built out of places that are not the Valley. Frustrating for us to see some of our what we call quasi competitors getting acquired already. Google bought one of them for $10 million, and they have sort of a tiny little fraction of what we do. But at the end of the day, you don't have to be located down there, and there's many, many benefits that make it worth being here in BC. I think the support infrastructure that we have, particularly government-wise, is world-class. We have more available to us than down there in terms of just basically government programs that can really help you bootstrap yourself into existence. At the same time, sort of valuations are never quite as good. Frankly, I think that the local investment community tends to be just not really understand our space nearly as well as you would down there, and it's an uphill battle sometimes. It's frustrating, but it doesn't mean that we can't get investors from afar. And in fact, we have some great local investors, but where we were sort of coming up a little bit short locally on that front, found investors out of the U.S. and overseas. So.
I tried not to look at it as an either or. I mean, I make trips down to the Valley. I mean, I'll go down for a coffee, I mean, not that ridiculous, but, you try and make connections down there, right? Obviously, the investors are way more savvy. For us as a company, dabbling in software, hardware, most of angel investors here in town are very focused on new media, internet, so it's not really in their space. So most of the investors that we talk to are either clean tech investors that might be here, there's only a handful, Toronto, or most of them are in the Valley, right? So like Nigel said, there's a tremendous amount of government funding opportunities that you can do. There's SHRED, there's IRAP, there's Engage grants with universities, there's the international commissioners that can help you determine whether or not a company you're dealing with in India is reputable or not by having them speak to them, or talking to a manufacturing facility in China for you and making sure they're reputable and they speak to them in their native tongue, right? So we have all these things as Canadians that we can leverage, and there's so much opportunity and so much talent, even in Vancouver, that there's really no shortage there. It's not like you have to go to the Valley to get talent. I mean, we have awesome universities here. We have 3 of them, if you include UVic, and there's no shortage of really smart people coming out of it, right? So there's not, on the talent side, there's not that level of competition that there is for startups in Palo Alto, fighting, Facebook and Google, trying to get the best engineers coming out of Stanford and Berkeley and Caltech and whatnot. So that's great, but yeah, exactly. The funding situation isn't as strong up here. It's not as savvy. So you have to balance.
You guys are happy, and you're going to stay in BC, right?
We're a Canadian company.
And you're going to stay in BC, right?
We're in BC right
now.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Are you happy with that answer?
Yeah. I wanted to.
Well, unfortunately, I think we're out of time. So I want to thank Nigel and Mischa and Philip for